Chosen one. Heaven has paused for you. Everything else keeps rushing forward, voices overlapping, lights flickering, clocks spinning, but this moment stands still. The noise fades. Because heaven wanted you to hear something clearly. God knows you're tired. He's seen the weight behind your eyes, the battles no one else can name. You've carried too much for too long. You've been the strong one in rooms that never noticed your shaking hands. You've kept your faith alive with whispers instead of songs, wondering if maybe God has moved on without you. But he hasn't. The silence you've been walking through isn't punishment, it's preservation. He's been guarding your heart, shaping your strength in secret. There was a young man once, named Arin. His friends called him the unbreakable one. He smiled through disappointments, encouraged everyone else, and prayed quietly for miracles that never seemed to arrive. The day he lost everything he thought made him valuable: a job, a relationship, his confidence, he sat by the window and said, "God, I'm done." Yet even in that moment, something inside whispered, "Rest, but don't quit." That whisper changed everything. It wasn't thunder or angels, it was peace. Like the soft glow of dawn breaking over a ruined battlefield. Aaron didn't rise instantly victorious, he rose trembling. But from that trembling came transformation. He learned that God's strength is not for the perfect, but for the exhausted, who still choose to stand. The ancient words recorded in the book of Nahum, chapter 1, verse 7, declare, "The Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble. He knows those who take refuge in him." Chosen one. That's your anchor. You are not unseen. You are not abandoned in this fatigue. You are known. Heaven recognizes the rhythm of your heartbeat, even when you barely have the strength to pray. God doesn't just watch you, he shelters you. You are resting in his stronghold, not drifting in chaos. Think of your life as a field after rain, muddy, messy, but alive beneath the surface. The storm that made you tired is the same storm that watered your next season. What looks like ruin is often preparation. The roots of endurance grow deepest in the dark. You might feel like a candle burning low, but even the smallest flame defies the night. And sometimes, God will let the wind blow, not to extinguish you, but to teach you how to bend without breaking. That's why he says, "Take refuge." You're not weak for needing rest. You're wise for knowing where to rest. So pause here. Let your shoulders drop. Inhale deeply, the kind of breath that reminds your soul it still belongs to peace. God has not forgotten your name. Heaven still moves when you whisper, and yes, even when you're weary, your light still matters. If this message speaks to the tired parts of you, take a quiet step of faith. Share it with someone else who's been carrying their own silent battle. Your story might be the reminder they were waiting for. And if you're here, at this moment, let heaven see you're still standing. Comment 1 below, just that number, as your silent declaration. I'm still here. I'm still chosen. The storm has not won. It never will. Because fatigue is not the end, it's the place where God begins again in you. But listen, this season of exhaustion is not wasted. Every sigh you've released has been turned into seed, planted deep in spiritual soil you cannot yet see. Soon, the same ground that felt barren will bloom again. God is not asking you to sprint, he's asking you to stay, to hold the line when nothing makes sense, to trust that even when your energy runs dry, His plan has not. Remember what happens to a tree in winter. It looks lifeless, stripped bare, but its roots are digging deeper, reaching toward unseen streams. That's what's happening in you right now. Heaven is strengthening your unseen parts. This quiet struggle is carving out space for new oil, new clarity, new courage. When you feel tempted to give up, whisper this truth: I am being rebuilt. You are not broken beyond repair. You are under holy construction. The walls that once caged you are being replaced by foundations that can carry glory. Don't curse the slowness. Even divine restoration takes time. And as you wait, keep this peace close. God is nearer than your next breath. When the world says you're finished, heaven calls you favored. Rest tonight, knowing this: you are still chosen, still loved, and your story is far from over. You've been carrying weight that no one else can measure, the kind that doesn't show on your shoulders but sinks quietly into your chest. You move through your days pretending to be fine, performing strength as if it were a costume. But heaven has seen the truth behind your calm face, the tremor in your soul, the ache that words can't translate. You tell yourself to push through, to smile, to keep functioning. But there are nights when the silence gets heavy, when your heart whispers, I can't keep this up. That's not weakness. That's the language of the weary, spoken only by those who have loved deeply, given fully, and fought battles invisible to others. God has been counting those unseen moments. Every time you held back tears so others wouldn't worry. Every time you prayed and didn't feel anything but kept praying anyway. Each of those moments is sacred. Heaven has recorded them, not as failures, but as proof of faith. There was once a woman named Mara. She used to believe that strength meant never breaking down. She kept serving, giving, showing up, until one night, after another long day of holding everyone else together, she sank to her knees and finally let the tears come. She didn't pray a fancy prayer. She just said, God, I'm so tired. In that honesty, she found something holy. The weight didn't vanish, but her heart shifted. She realized that sometimes the most powerful worship isn't a song, it's surrender. The Word of God declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 55, verse 22, Cast your burden upon the Lord, and He will sustain you. He will never allow the righteous to be shaken. That's not a suggestion, it's an invitation. God doesn't ask you to hide your exhaustion. He asks you to hand it over, to stop gripping the pain so tightly that your palms bleed. He's not waiting for perfect words, just an open heart. Think of your spirit like a vessel made of clay. Cracks appear from pressure, from carrying too much. Yet, when light passes through, it's those very cracks that let the radiance spill out. Your fragility isn't a flaw, it's a doorway for grace. God shines best through broken edges. Maybe that's why you felt like life has been stripping you bare, because He's revealing the strength you didn't know you had. Every burden you've carried has stretched your capacity for compassion. Every disappointment has refined your discernment. You've been becoming the person you were meant to be all along, not through success, but through endurance. Picture this: a bridge over a deep canyon. It groans under weight, shakes under storms, but never collapses. Why? Because it was built to hold. That's you. You were constructed by divine design to withstand seasons that would break others. The weight you carry may feel unbearable, but it's also proof of your purpose. Heaven wouldn't entrust that much to someone unprepared. Still, God knows. He knows how your heart aches when no one checks on you. He knows the loneliness behind your laughter. He knows how you wonder if all your giving will ever return. And he whispers, "You're not forgotten. I am still here." This is the unseen mercy of God. He stays even when others leave. He carries the weight when you have no words. He walks with you through the long corridors of waiting until hope becomes more than a word again. So if today feels heavy, let it be heavy. Don't rush the lesson by pretending to be fine. Sit in the truth of your exhaustion, knowing it won't last forever. The weight you carry is being transformed into wisdom. One day, you'll speak from this very place and help someone else find their way back to peace. Because though your hands are trembling, they are still lifted, and that, chosen one, is enough. And when you finally exhale, something sacred happens. The heaviness begins to soften, not because the burden disappears, but because you're no longer carrying it alone. God steps into the space between your heartbeat and your fear, whispering calm into the chaos you've been hiding. Let the tears fall. They're not signs of weakness, but proof that you're still alive. Still feeling. Still believing somewhere deep inside. Even when faith feels faint, it is not gone. It is simply resting, waiting to rise again. Soon, you'll look back and realize the weight was never meant to crush you. It was meant to carve you into someone unshakable, someone who knows peace by name. And when that day comes, you'll thank God, not for removing the burden, but for teaching you how to breathe beneath it. There are battles you've fought that no one will ever know. You wake up each morning, wear your calm like armor, and face a world that assumes you're fine. But behind your quiet composure, the war rages, an invisible battlefield between faith and fatigue, hope and despair. It's not that you've stopped believing, it's that you've been bruised in secret. Every time you tried to rise, something pulled you back. Doubt, disappointment, the echo of past failures. And sometimes, the hardest enemy to fight isn't the storm around you, it's the voice inside whispering, "What if it never gets better?" Chosen one. God has seen this inner struggle. He's not distant from your pain. In fact, He's closer than ever when you feel furthest away. The world measures strength by who wins. Heaven measures it by who endures. There was a man named Eli. He carried his calling like a flame in the wind, burning bright, yet always close to being extinguished. Life kept striking him with loss. One by one, people he trusted drifted away. Yet he kept praying, not loudly, but quietly. Some nights, he didn't even speak words, just tears that fell onto his pillow. Each one a silent prayer. One night, when the silence felt unbearable, a thought came. The same God who counted my steps will also count my scars. No. And that's when he understood his wounds were not wasted. They were the proof that he had fought. The invisible battles were never meant to destroy him. They were meant to reveal what could not be broken. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians. Second book, chapter 4, verse 8. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair. You see, Faith isn't the absence of battle. Faith is the refusal to surrender even when you bleed. You may not realize it, but every night you've survived has been a victory. Heaven doesn't forget warriors who fight unseen. Think of your spirit as an iron forged in fire. Flames don't destroy iron, they purify it. Each season of pain is shaping you, tempering you, making you unbreakable in the places where you once cracked. The fire is not your enemy, it's the forge of your becoming. There's a certain beauty in invisible battles. They teach you to listen deeper, to discern the voice of God amid the noise. They show you that strength isn't loud, it's consistent. And though others may never understand the cost of your endurance, God has written it down. Every hidden victory, every quiet yes, every moment you chose love instead of bitterness, it's all seen, all counted. So when your soul trembles, remind yourself of this truth. The fight within you is not proof of weakness, it's evidence of divine assignment. The darkness doesn't attack what doesn't threaten it. The reason the pressure has been so intense is because you carry something holy. And right here, before you move to the next thing, take a breath. Let this sentence become your declaration, not of pride, but of remembrance. Type, "Still I stand," below. It's not a chant, it's a testimony. Each word says, "I've been through storms, through silence, through shadows, but I'm still standing by grace." That's what heaven sees when it looks at you, not your exhaustion, not your mistakes, but your endurance. You have been struck, yes, but never crushed. And even in the midst of battle, the light within you still flickers with divine purpose. The invisible wars you fight will one day become someone else's roadmap to freedom. Every scar, every silent prayer will become evidence that even in darkness, God was there. And when you finally look back, you'll see what heaven saw all along. You never fought alone. So when you type, "Still I stand," don't treat it like a passing phrase. It's a holy reminder. It means you've walked through disappointment and didn't lose your soul. It means the fire tried to consume you, but you came out refined, not ruined. Every letter you type becomes a small altar of remembrance, a way of saying, "God, I'm still here. I'm still willing." When you write it, you're not declaring perfection. You're declaring survival. You're agreeing with heaven's record that you didn't quit when you could have. You're letting God know that even tired, even trembling, you're choosing to believe again. And as your words appear on the screen, imagine them rising like incense before the throne, a digital testimony that even through invisible battles, you stood your ground. The same God who saw your struggle will honor your stand, turning quiet endurance into unshakable glory. There are moments when heaven feels silent, when prayers seem to vanish into the dark, and all you hear in return is the echo of your own longing. You wonder if God still listens, or if your voice has grown too faint to reach him. You read the promises, but they feel far away, almost like someone else's story. That silence can be louder than pain itself. But what if the silence isn't distance? What if it's design? There are seasons when God hides his voice, not to punish you, but to strengthen your hearing. When you cannot feel him, you learn to trust him. When you cannot see the way, you begin to walk by faith alone, and that, chosen one, is where true maturity begins. A shepherd once led his flock through a barren valley. The air was dry, the land cracked, And the sheep grew restless. They could no longer hear his voice clearly. The wind carried it away. Yet the shepherd never left them. He simply walked ahead, close enough to guide, far enough to teach them to follow, by memory, not by comfort. That is what God does with you. The silence isn't absence, it's an invitation to deeper trust. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Habakkuk. Chapter 2, verse 3. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, though it tarries. Wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not delay. There's a rhythm in divine timing that no human heart can rush. You may not understand why heaven waits, but every delay is holding something sacred in motion. When God seems silent, He's often arranging what you've prayed for behind the scenes. His stillness isn't a pause of neglect, it's the sound of construction. Think about the seed buried in soil. It's silent too. No one sees the stretching, the slow breaking of its shell, the push toward light. But in that unseen work, life is forming. If you judged the seed by its silence, you'd think it was dead. But the silence is proof of growth. So it is with you. Heaven is cultivating your roots before showing your fruit. The silence also exposes what your soul truly depends on. When you can't feel the music, will you still dance? When you can't hear His voice, will you still obey the last instruction He gave you? Faith built on constant noise is fragile, but faith that thrives in quiet becomes unstoppable. There's a beauty in this hidden season. It teaches you to listen beyond words, to sense God's presence in still air, to find His fingerprints in small mercies, a stranger's kindness, a sunrise after another restless night, a verse that lands differently than before. Silence becomes not a void, but a language. You may be in that language now, the holy quiet, where God doesn't explain but still sustains. You rise every day and do the small things, work, breathe, hope, and in that obedience, heaven writes your endurance into eternity's book. Remember, even Jesus experienced silence. On the cross, He cried out, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" And yet redemption was unfolding in that very moment. The Father hadn't left, He was fulfilling the plan. What felt like abandonment was actually alignment. So, if your prayers seem unanswered, don't lose heart. You are not being ignored, you are being refined. Silence is the sacred ground between promise and fulfillment, the space where faith transforms from belief into knowing. One day, the quiet will break. You'll hear His voice again, clearer, stronger, closer. You'll look back and realize that the silence didn't steal your faith, it secured it. You'll see how every unanswered moment was a bridge leading to a revelation only stillness could birth. Until then, let the quiet teach you. Let it make you gentle but unshakable. Heaven is not withholding, heaven is working. And when the appointed time comes, what once felt empty will overflow with meaning. The silence is not the end of God's voice, it is the space where His next word gathers strength. And when that word finally comes, it won't just speak to your ears, it will awaken something ancient in your spirit. You'll recognize it not as new information, but as remembrance. Like your soul finally hearing what it always knew was true. Then you'll understand why the silence lasted so long. It was never punishment, it was preparation. The quiet carved space inside you for the magnitude of what's coming next. So don't resent the stillness. Let it steady your heartbeat. Let it become your sanctuary. because soon, the same silence that once frightened, you will become the proof that God never left. There comes a moment when your strength feels completely spent, when you've prayed until your words ran out, fought until your hands shook, and smiled through the ache just to keep others from worrying. You sit there between faith and fatigue and wonder if there's anything left inside you worth offering. You've said, "God, I don't think I can do this anymore." Yet even in that confession, heaven leans closer, because honesty is the birthplace of renewal. You were never asked to be unbreakable. You were asked to remain willing, and willingness, even when trembling, is still obedience. The prophet Elijah once collapsed under a tree after a long journey. He told God, "I've had enough." But instead of rebuke, heaven sent rest. An angel touched him, offered food, and whispered, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too great for you." That moment wasn't about strength, it was about mercy. God didn't demand more, he restored what was lost. As the prophet wrote in the book of Haggai, chapter 2, verse 9, "The glory of this latter house shall be greater than the former, says the Lord of hosts, and in this place will I give peace." You see, your exhaustion is not the end, it's the sign that you're close to transformation. The same God who saw you begin will not abandon you halfway. He's preparing the latter glory, the kind that can only come after breaking, after refining, after surrender. Think of a field that's been harvested. At first glance, it looks barren, stripped, used, empty. But below the surface, the soil is richer than before, full of nutrients born from what was given away. That's what happens when you feel drained. You've poured out, yes, but now heaven is enriching your ground, readying it for a new season. This is where the beauty of restoration begins, not in grand gestures, but in quiet returns. A new sunrise after a long night, a breath that doesn't hurt as much, a peace that feels undeserved yet undeniable. That's God rebuilding you from the inside out. And maybe, right now, this message is that quiet sunrise. Maybe it's heaven's way of saying, rest, but don't retreat. Pause, but don't disappear. Because what you think is an ending is really the moment just before dawn. There's a rhythm in the spirit that always leads weary souls home. When you feel empty, you are closest to being filled. When you've given all you can, you make room for grace to enter. You don't need to climb. Sometimes all heaven asks is that you breathe. So take this moment not as a command, but as a gentle invitation. If this word has found a pulse inside your tired heart, let it breathe through you. Maybe you feel a small flicker, a warmth you can't quite name. That's hope, finding its way back. If this message lights something in you, let that spark move. Touch the flame gently, press the heart as you would tend a small lamp in the night. That's your silent like. And if you sense it could warm another soul, release it into the dark. Share it like a lantern passed hand to hand. And when you wish to keep walking beside this flow of words and grace, stay, subscribe, not out of habit, but out of belonging. It's a whisper to heaven. I choose to remain in the light, because you are not finished. You are being refilled. The fatigue you feel today will become the testimony that fuels someone else tomorrow. Picture yourself as a lighthouse on a foggy shore, its lamp faint yet unyielding. Ships still find their way because it refuses to go out. That's what your life is doing right now, guiding others even as you recover your own strength. Let your soul rest in this truth. God has not called you to burn out, He has called you to burn bright. And after every dusk, there is always dawn. And when that dawn comes, you'll realize the night was never wasted. It shaped your sight so you could recognize light when it finally returned. The same darkness that once frightened, you will now frame your testimony in gold. You'll stand where you once fell, breathing slower, softer, stronger. The fatigue that once made you question your calling will become the quiet proof that grace sustains what effort never could. So, rest in the knowing that dawn is not coming from somewhere far away. It's rising from within you. Every flicker of faith, every small act of hope is already painting the sky brighter. You're not waiting for light anymore. You are the light. You've walked through nights when even prayer felt heavy. You've whispered to heaven and heard only the hum of your own heartbeat. Yet somehow, you're still here. That alone is a miracle. You have survived what once swore it would destroy you. But here's the truth you may not have realized through every sleepless night. Through every silent tear, angels have been standing guard. Heaven never left you unprotected, even when you couldn't feel it. Divine reinforcement surrounded you. The unseen realm has always been active around your weary soul. There was a woman named Leora who thought she was utterly alone. Every door she tried closed in her face. Every prayer seemed unanswered. One evening, she sat on her balcony under a bruised sky and said, "If I'm meant to keep going, show me." She expected silence, but a soft wind brushed her cheek. Gentle, yet certain. And in that instant, she felt peace rise in her chest. It wasn't a coincidence. It was confirmation. Sometimes God doesn't speak in thunder. He moves through wind. He doesn't always shout. Sometimes He simply surrounds. The ancient words in the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9 declare, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." And that promise wasn't just for warriors of old, it's for you now. You, the one standing in the in-between, wondering if your strength has run out. Heaven hasn't abandoned you. God didn't bring you this far to leave you trembling on the threshold of breakthrough. You see, angels are not always radiant beings with wings. Sometimes they come as timely words, as kindness from a stranger, as sudden peace that makes no sense in the storm. Every time you chose to stay when quitting felt easier. You were strengthened by divine hands. Imagine yourself walking through a thick forest at night. You can't see the path, but every time you lift your foot, the ground lights up just enough for the next step. That's how heaven guides you one step at a time. You're not meant to see the whole route, only to trust the light beneath your feet. And though fear whispers that you're forgotten, faith answers quietly, you are surrounded. Every prayer, even the ones you've forgotten, is still echoing in the halls of heaven. The angels have been carrying them, each one, a spark that keeps the darkness from swallowing you whole. There's a reason the enemy has fought you so fiercely. He attacks what he fears. Your light carries authority. Your endurance carries legacy. You were never the weak link, you were the threat. Sometimes, heaven's help doesn't look like rescue, it looks like reinforcement. You didn't escape the battle, but you endured it. You didn't avoid the fire, but you walked through it and came out refined. That is divine assistance in motion. So, right now, As you sit in this space between fatigue and faith, pause. Breathe. Let this truth wrap around you like a quiet shield. You are not alone in this fight. Every tear has been seen, every struggle acknowledged. Heaven is nearer than your fear. If this word reaches something deep inside you, pause and let your spirit respond. Type 888 below. It's not for attention, it's a quiet covenant between you and heaven. That simple act says, I still believe in new beginnings. It's a seed, not a slogan, a whisper to God that even tired, you choose to keep walking. Every 888 becomes a flicker of faith, lighting the dark corners of this moment. You're not declaring perfection, you're declaring endurance. And heaven always honors that small, stubborn, yes. Longed. So, lift your chin again. Chosen one. There are angels at your side, unseen but undeniable. And long after you log off, they'll still be there guarding, guiding, carrying you through what's next. Your battle is not ending in defeat, it's ending in revelation. You were never unprotected, you were always covered by grace. And when you type 888, don't do it because you were told to do it, because something in you recognizes that number as a heartbeat of hope. It's your way of saying, I'm ready for what's next, even if I don't see it yet. That simple motion, 3 eighths, 3 turns of eternity becomes your signature in heaven's book. A quiet agreement that you will not let despair write your ending. It's a symbol of alignment, not performance. And as those digits appear, imagine heaven responding with light new strength entering old bones, new purpose breathing into tired lungs. Because in the language of the divine, even small acts of faith echo louder than fear. You've questioned why doors have stayed closed, why opportunities slipped away just when they seemed within reach. You've wondered if maybe you misheard God, if perhaps your timing was wrong or your faith too small. But not every closed door is rejection. Some are divine redirections. What looks like denial often hides protection. There's a sacred truth buried beneath the delays. God does not withhold to punish, He withholds to prepare. When something doesn't open, it's because the other side isn't ready yet, or because you aren't meant to fit into that frame anymore. Heaven sometimes closes what your heart still wants to prove that your destiny deserves better than what you were willing to settle for. There was once a craftsman named Jonah, not the prophet, but a simple man who worked with wood. He spent months building a door for a wealthy merchant, carving patterns, sanding edges, making it perfect. But when the time came to deliver it, the merchant refused, saying it didn't fit the house anymore. Jonah felt humiliated. He had poured his heart into that piece. He almost burned it in anger, but something in him said, wait. Weeks later, a traveler commissioned him to build the entrance to a temple in another town. When Jonah arrived, he realized his unused door fit perfectly into the temple's frame, as though it had been made for that very place all along. Chosen one. That's how divine timing works. You may feel dismissed, delayed, overlooked, but what you've built in obedience will find its rightful place. Every skill, every tear, every effort that seemed wasted will align with purpose when the season turns. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 9, a man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. And that's not just poetic wisdom, It's strategy from heaven. Your steps are being rerouted towards something you can't see yet. The path may twist, but it never loses direction when your feet walk by faith. Delay is heaven's way of refining both destination and traveler. It's like gold in the fire. It must reach the right temperature before it can shine. If God allowed some doors to open too soon, they would have crushed you under blessings you weren't yet strong enough to carry. Delay isn't divine neglect, it's divine calibration. Think of the archer pulling back the string. The further the draw, the greater the distance the arrow will travel. The tension isn't punishment, it's potential. The pullback means you're about to be launched farther than you imagined. So if you're in a season of waiting, don't mistake stillness for stagnation. Seeds stay underground long before anyone sees green. There's movement in the unseen, the kind that roots you deeper, so that when you rise, you don't topple with the wind. You might look around and see others advancing, their paths clear and quick. Don't envy them. Their race isn't yours. Your pace is sacred. And heaven is tailoring your breakthrough to fit your unique calling. The door that's meant for you won't need forcing. When it opens, it will swing effortlessly because it recognizes your anointing. Sometimes, what God delays, He's still designing. The silence around you is the sound of construction. The room being prepared bears your name, but the paint is still drying. And when the time finally comes, everything will align: your skill, your faith, your endurance, your wisdom. The very things that once made you feel behind will make you ready. You'll walk through that door, not as the version who prayed for it, but as the one who's now strong enough to steward it. So rest in this truth: waiting is not wasted. Every pause has purpose. The delays are not denials. They are heaven's protection wrapped in patience. Keep your heart soft, your hands steady, and your faith anchored, because one day soon, you'll look back and realize why every no was necessary to guide you to the yes that lasts forever. The delay that once broke your spirit will become the very evidence of how deeply God cared for your destiny. And when that door finally opens, you'll see the fingerprints of grace all over it, edges smoothed by patience, hinges oiled by prayer, a threshold wide enough to carry your growth. You'll realize nothing was late. Everything was perfectly timed. The years that felt wasted were actually years of molding. The detours weren't delays, but directions toward the place built precisely for your soul. So lift your eyes. The waiting season is not meant to punish you, but to prepare you for rooms where only peace fits. When the door swings open, you'll walk through it, knowing you were never behind, only becoming. There is a difference between quitting and resting, and heaven wants you to learn that difference deeply. The world teaches you to keep moving, to measure your worth by your productivity, to fear stillness as if it were failure. But God, He calls you into rest, not to stop your purpose, but to restore your strength for it. Rest is not retreat, it's recovery. It's what happens when a soldier returns to the tent after battle, not because they've lost, but because victory demands renewal. Even the bravest warrior must sit, breathe, and let their wounds be bound before stepping forward again. You, too, are allowed to rest. The same God who created the heavens took the seventh day and called it holy, not because He was tired, but because He was teaching you that sacred rhythm work. Then rest, fight, then breathe. The pause is part of the plan. There was a man named Thomas, a traveler who believed that movement was the proof of faith. He walked from town to town, chasing opportunities and miracles alike. But over time, his steps grew slower, his heart heavier. One night, he camped by a river. The sound of flowing water became his only company. Exhausted, he stared at his reflection and saw someone who didn't recognize peace anymore. That's when a quiet realization came. The river moved, even when he didn't. The current didn't need his help to keep flowing, it only needed space. Thomas wept, finally allowing himself to rest. Chosen one, that river is your soul. The Spirit flows within you, even when you stop striving. You don't need to push every moment to prove your faith. Some seasons are for surrendering your schedule to God's timing and letting His current carry you. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in the book of Exodus, chapter 33, verse 14, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." That promise isn't a suggestion, it's an assurance. God's presence is the resting place. When you pause in Him, you're not falling behind, you're being refilled by the source Himself. Think of a violin string pulled too tight. It may produce sound for a while, but tension eventually snaps it. The musician knows to loosen it between songs so it can sing again. You've been stretched, pulled, and tested. Now God invites you to loosen, to breathe, to find melody again. Rest doesn't mean inaction. It means trust. It's the spiritual exhale after long endurance, the sacred space where striving ceases and stillness becomes worship. Even silence can glorify God when it's filled with faith instead of fear. This kind of rest isn't just for your body, it's for your soul. It's laying down the mental war of control, the endless what-ifs, the hows, the whens. When you rest, you give God back the reins of what was never yours to carry. And rest doesn't always look like sleep. Sometimes it's stepping away from comparison, letting go of perfection, or sitting in gratitude for what is, instead of striving for what isn't. Sometimes it's the moment when you realize you don't have to fix everything, you just have to stay present. You may feel guilty for slowing down. But listen, stillness is not laziness. It's strength in surrender. The ground of your life needs time to breathe before the next harvest. Even in the natural world, fields are left fallow so the soil can regain nutrients. Without rest, even fertile ground loses its power to grow. So if your soul is weary, don't fight the pause. Step into it with reverence. Light a candle. Breathe deeply. Look at the sky and let yourself remember you are not God. You are loved by Him. That's enough. The world will tell you to hurry, but heaven moves in rhythm, not rush. God is not asking for your exhaustion, He's asking for your attention. The most profound progress sometimes happens in stillness, when your heart realigns with His heartbeat. One day, you'll look back at this moment of rest and see that it wasn't a detour, it was the bridge. The pause you feared was actually the breath that kept your purpose alive. You didn't fall behind. You were simply being prepared to walk again, this time lighter, clearer, and closer to peace. Rest is not retreat, it's resurrection in slow motion. And when you rise from this pause, you'll carry a quieter kind of strength, the kind that doesn't shout but stands steady. Rest has rewritten your rhythm. You no longer move from fear of falling behind, but from trust that timing is sacred. Because true rest doesn't end your journey, it teaches your soul how to walk with grace again. There are tears that never reach the ground, tears that fall inside. Hidden behind polite smiles and tired eyes, you've cried them quietly. In corrides, in hallways, in the middle of conversations where you nodded while your soul was breaking. Those tears were never invisible to heaven. Every drop has been counted, every ache recorded. You may not realize it, but tears have their own language. They speak when words fail. They rise as prayers too deep for sound, carrying messages your lips could never form. The world may see them as weakness, but heaven sees them as evidence of endurance. Tears are sacred ink, writing your faith into the story of eternity. There was once a young mother named Ria who prayed every night beside her child's empty bed. Doctors had given up hope, yet she kept whispering, "God, please see me." Months passed, and nothing changed until one dawn, while she wept again. A quiet warmth filled the room. Her child's breathing steadied. Color returned to her face. And in that stillness, Ria heard the softest whisper, "I have heard you." From that day, she understood tears are never wasted. They water miracles. We find in the book of Psalms, chapter 56, verse 8, "You have kept count of my wanderings. Put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your record?" This is the kind of love that sees everything, not just your victories, but your vulnerability. Every tear you've hidden, every sigh you've swallowed, He's gathered them all. Heaven keeps what the world dismisses. Picture your tears as small seeds buried deep in the soil of divine memory. Each one holds something holy, a cry for healing, a plea for direction, a fragment of surrender. When the season turns, those tears bloom into fruit, peace, wisdom, clarity, strength. You are not crying into the void, you are sowing into eternity. It's easy to feel embarrassed by emotion, to think you should have been stronger, more composed. But strength isn't about suppressing pain, it's about choosing hope, even while you're hurting. God isn't disappointed by your tears, He's moved by them. The shortest verse in Scripture says, Jesus wept. The Son of God didn't hide His humanity, He sanctified it. So, when your tears fall, remember, they are the proof that your heart is still alive, still tender, still capable of love. A hardened heart never cries, but a chosen heart bleeds beauty through brokenness. There's a mystery in divine math. What you release in tears returns multiplied in joy. Your sorrow becomes the soil where celebration takes root. The valley you walked through weeping will echo with laughter one day. Not because life gets easier, but because grace gets deeper. And maybe, even now, you can feel something stirring inside, a quiet shift. A knowing that your tears haven't gone unnoticed. The air feels lighter. The pain hasn't disappeared. But it's no longer empty. It's holy. If your heart resonates with this truth, write, He says me, below. Those 3 words are more than a comment. They're a confession. A gentle défiance against despair. When you type them, you're saying, my pain has purpose. My tears have been witnessed. I am not forgotten. Let that truth settle over you, like rain. Your tears have spoken, and heaven has answered. The same God who caught them will turn them into rivers of renewal, washing away everything that once made you afraid to feel. Keep your eyes soft and your faith steady. Because soon, what made you cry will become the reason you praise. When you write, "He sees me," you're not just commenting, you're bearing witness. You're agreeing with heaven's record that even in your most hidden pain, you were never invisible. Those words say, "I am seen, I am known, and my tears matter." It's not a cry for attention, it's a declaration of identity. Each time you type it, imagine it rising like light, reaching the same heaven that collected every tear. Your words become a soft echo that joins countless other voices whispering the same truth across the earth. In that sacred chorus, loneliness begins to lose its grip, because faith always multiplies when it's spoken aloud. And when you see others write the same phrase, remember, you're part of something larger than pain. You're part of a movement of healing hearts learning to hope again. Every "He sees me" becomes a ripple across eternity, a quiet reminder that no one weeps alone, and that even tears can become praise. And as those words settle in your spirit, let peace take their place. The ache softens, the air shifts, and your heart begins to believe again. He truly sees you, and that is enough. You've fallen, risen, stumbled, and risen again. You've walked through storms that left you drenched in doubt, yet you're still standing. Maybe not as loud, not as sure, but stronger, quieter, truer. That kind of strength doesn't come from never falling, it comes from refusing to stay down. There's something sacred about standing again after life has bent you. You don't rise because the pain has gone, you rise because you've remembered who walks beside you. Every scar you carry tells heaven that you've seen the fire and chose faith anyway. There was a man named Caleb who once said, "I don't think I can try again." He had lost everything, a business, a friend, his sense of purpose. For weeks, he drifted through his days like a shadow. But one morning, he heard a simple phrase inside, "Get up," even shaking. He didn't understand why, but he obeyed. He got up, washed his face, and took one small step toward what frightened him. That single act shifted everything, because rising isn't about confidence, it's about agreement. Agreement with heaven's truth that your story isn't over. Agreement that even trembling feet can still move forward. The Apostle Paul once wrote to the Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 35, "So do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded." That verse isn't about arrogance, it's about endurance. Confidence here means trust in God's promise. You've come too far to discard it now, even when strength feels like a memory. Your faith still carries authority. Think of a candle burned low at midnight. Its flame flickers, small and fragile, yet the darkness still can't conquer it. Rising again isn't about bursting into light, it's about protecting that small flame until morning comes. And morning will come. Sometimes, courage looks less like victory and more like showing up. Sometimes it's standing on shaky legs, whispering, "I'm still here." You may not feel ready, but obedience doesn't wait for comfort. Every step, no matter how hesitant, is holy ground beneath your feet. You're learning that rising again isn't about going back to who you were. It's about stepping into who you've become. The pain refined you. The waiting matured you. The breaking taught you compassion. You are not rebuilding what was. You are becoming what will be. And now, this moment is your gentle call to rise. not with noise, but with quiet certainty. Let hope stretch inside you, like light returning after rain. You don't need to rush. You just need to move. If this word reaches you, let it live through you. Touch the heart softly like a hand over a flickering flame. That's your silent like. The way souls say, I'm still burning. Let it drift outward. Share it as you would release a dove into dawn. Not to be seen, but to carry peace to another soul in the storm. And if you feel the pull to keep walking with these words, stay, subscribe, as one chooses to linger by a river that speaks peace. There is no pressure, only presence. Every gesture you make becomes a ripple of light that touches more than you'll ever know. Your rising is contagious. It tells others that hope still breathes, that faith can still walk even with trembling knees. Each quiet yes sends light into places where despair once ruled. So get up, even shaking. Heaven has recorded your endurance. You've been prepared for this moment, not to prove your worth, but to reflect His strength. You are not weak for starting over. You are wise for not giving up. Every sunrise you wake to is a standing ovation from heaven saying, you made it through the night. And tonight, heaven whispers again, stand. Even if you tremble, because trembling hands can still hold miracles. And when you finally stand again, don't rush to run. Let your first steps be soft, sacred. The ground beneath you remembers your perseverance. It has been waiting for you to rise. Every breath you take now is a hymn. Every step forward, a declaration that grace has triumphed over despair. You are not moving alone. Heaven moves with you. Step for step, breath for breath. Let your rising be quiet, but radiant. Like dawn spilling over the mountains. You don't have to announce it. The light will speak for itself. Those who once saw you broken will see you shining and know God restores beautifully. And as the sky brightens above your new beginning, remember this: you were never meant to rise once. You are meant to keep rising, over and over, until glory becomes your rhythm. There are seasons when everything you value is crushed: the dreams, the certainty, the plans you thought were divinely secured. You look at the pieces scattered around your feet and wonder how something once anointed could now lie in ruins. But in the kingdom, crushing is not the end. It's the process that brings forth oil. Oil is costly because it's pressed. Grapes don't become wine until they are broken. Olives don't release oil until they are crushed. And purpose doesn't flow from you until you've been through the press of pain. The weight you felt wasn't meant to destroy you. It was heaven's way of producing something pure and lasting inside you. You might not have seen it while you were in the middle of it: the betrayal, the disappointment, the sudden losses. But those moments were extracting something sacred. God doesn't waste pain. He transforms it into power. There was once a man named Soren who loved creating perfumes. He collected flowers, spices, resins, each carrying its own scent. But one day, his shop burned down. The fragrances he spent years perfecting vanished in the smoke. For weeks, he sat in silence, staring at the ashes, convinced his life's work was gone. Then, as he swept the remains, he noticed the air around him was thick with aroma, stronger, richer, deeper than before. The fire hadn't erased the fragrance, it had released it. That's what happens to the chosen. When life burns, what you thought defined you. What's truly divine within you begins to rise. The fire exposes the fragrance, The apostle reminds us in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 17, "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all." End of calm. You see, heaven measures pain differently. What feels endless now is temporary compared to the magnitude of what it's creating inside you. Every pressure, every heartbreak, every silent battle is weaving eternity into your character. Think of gold. Again, it's not valuable because it's shiny, but because it has endured refining. The furnace removes what's impure, leaving only what can withstand flame. The same is true for your spirit. Every crushing you've endured is refining your purpose, removing fear, pride, doubt, and leaving behind the rarest treasure, faith that won't collapse under weight. It's natural to ask why, to want answers, explanations, closure. But sometimes God doesn't offer clarity, He offers completion. You may never understand why you had to be pressed the way you were, but one day you'll see what was produced through it, and it will make sense. The oil of endurance doesn't come cheaply. It's born from nights of crying out, "How much longer?" It's found in the moments you kept believing, even when you couldn't see. This oil carries the aroma of perseverance. It marks you. It distinguishes you. It's why some people can't understand how you're still standing. They don't smell the oil. But heaven does. And the fragrance of that oil travels farther than you realize. Your resilience is teaching others what trust looks like in the fire. Your ability to forgive is proof of anointing greater than bitterness. Your peace in chaos is the scent of heaven's handiwork. Chosen one, don't resent the press. The oil being produced in you is the kind that heals others. Your story will become a balm to those who are breaking now. Every crushing was calculated by a loving hand that refused to let your pain be pointless. Soon, you'll pour that oil over others through your words, your compassion, your faith. You'll realize that your greatest ministry came not from what you achieved, but from what you endured. The fragrance that follows you will tell the truth. Your pain once tried to hide God was here all along. The crushing didn't end you. It crowned you. And when you catch that faint scent of grace in the air, the peace that wasn't there before, you'll know the pressing is over. The oil has begun to flow, and it carries your healing within it. Every wound that once bled pain now releases fragrance. The same hands that broke you have also blessed you. The same fire that burned your plans has refined your soul. You will walk into rooms and shift the atmosphere, not by striving, but by simply carrying the aroma of endurance. People will sense something sacred about you without knowing why. That is what the crushing was, for to turn pain into perfume, grief into glory, sorrow into strength. You're no longer surviving the press, you're anointed by it. There's a strange beauty in waiting for God's timing. It humbles you, shapes you, stretches your trust until it becomes stronger than your understanding. You've prayed, planned, and prepared, yet the answer seems delayed. You stand between what was promised and what has yet to appear, wondering if maybe heaven has forgotten your request. But chosen one, the silence of timing is not absence, it's alignment. Heaven's clock doesn't tick like yours. While you count minutes, God arranges seasons. What feels like delay is often divine choreography. Every closed door, every redirection, every unexpected pause, it's all synchronizing your life with something greater than you can see. There was a young artist named Eliora who dreamed of sharing her paintings with the world. She applied to gallery after gallery, only to be told, "Not yet." Discouraged, she began painting solely for herself. One evening, she poured her heartbreak into a canvas, unlike any other, a blend of storm and sunrise. Weeks later, a curator visited her town and saw it displayed in a small cafe. That single piece became her breakthrough. The rejection was never rejection. It was redirection. That's the mystery of timing. God waits until both your heart and your harvest are ready, when one ripens before the other. He holds everything still in mercy. The ancient words recorded in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verse 11 declare, "He has made everything beautiful in its time." Notice it says, in its time, not in your time. Beauty unfolds when both heaven and earth agree. If it hasn't happened yet, it's because the soil of your soul is still being prepared to receive the fullness of the blessing. Think of a symphony. Every instrument has its part. Every note, its moment. If the violins rush ahead of the drums, the beauty collapses. Your life is that divine orchestra. God is the conductor, waiting for the precise cue to lift his hand and let everything fall into harmony. The waiting can feel cruel. You watch others walk into what you've been praying for, and you wonder if maybe you've been overlooked. But God never compares stories. He completes them. Your timeline was carved with divine precision. You're not late, you're being aligned. And sometimes, the very thing you've been asking for is already on its way, carried by unseen hands through the corridors of time. You can't see it because it's still maturing. You don't plant a seed today and expect fruit tomorrow. The earth needs time to break it open, nourish it, and bring it forth. Heaven does the same with your prayers. If you could glimpse behind the veil, you'd see how many miracles are already in motion, names being spoken, paths being rearranged, hearts being softened, all for your eventual arrival. God's wait is never cruel, it's always careful. But waiting doesn't mean doing nothing. It means learning to rest without retreating, to prepare in faith, to live as though the promise is already true. That's what trust looks like, not passivity, but peace in motion. You may not understand now, but one day you'll look back and thank God for every pause. You'll see that the delay wasn't denial, it was divine protection, sparing you from opportunities that would have crushed unready hands. And right now, as this truth settles into your spirit, let it anchor you. You're not waiting for God to move. God is waiting for your readiness to align with His perfect plan. If this word meets you in the waiting, type 777 below. That number isn't magic, it's a mirror of completion, the mark of divine perfection. When you write it, you're not signaling impatience, you're declaring surrender. You're saying, I trust the timing. I release control. I believe heaven's plan is already unfolding. And as those numbers appear, imagine them becoming small lights scattered across the timeline of your destiny. Each one marking a moment when you chose to wait well. Because every 777 is not a countdown, it's a covenant. A whisper that says, God's timing is flawless, and my heart is aligned with it. Your waiting is not wasted. It's worship. It's heaven's way of making sure that when the door opens, you'll have the strength, wisdom, and grace to walk through it and never look back. When you type 777, let it be a sacred pause, 3 sevens. 3 echoes of divine order. It's not a symbol of waiting longer. It's the reminder that the work is already perfect in God's hands. You're choosing to align, not to strive. Every 777 is your quiet amen to heaven's rhythm. It means, I trust what I can't yet see, because what's coming is already complete. Doubt is a quiet thief. It rarely storms in it, whispers. It questions what God has spoken, blurs what once felt certain, and plants the smallest seed of maybe not. It doesn't destroy faith in one blow. It erodes it grain by grain, until you start to wonder if the promise was ever real. You've heard those whispers before, haven't you? Maybe you misheard God. Maybe you're not chosen. Maybe this is just how life will always be. They sound harmless at first, but left unchallenged, they become chains. That's why heaven is calling you to silence the voices of doubt, not through force, but through remembrance. Remembrance is powerful. When you remember what God has already done, you disarm what fear is trying to predict. You begin to speak the language of faith again. The same God who parted seas, healed wounds, and opened barren wombs hasn't stopped working. He hasn't changed his mind about you. There was a young teacher named Naya who once believed she had missed her calling. Every attempt at progress failed. She told herself she wasn't talented enough, spiritual enough, chosen enough. But one day, while packing up old journals, she found a note she had written to herself years earlier. If God begins something in you, He intends to finish it. The words felt like a mirror held to her heart. That night, she prayed differently, not asking for new signs, but thanking Him for old faith. From that moment, the fog began to lift. You silence doubt not by denying its existence, but by drowning it in truth. The Word of God declares in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 6, "But let him ask in faith, with no doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind." That's what doubt does. It tosses you between belief and fear, hope and hesitation. But you were never meant to live as a wave, pushed and pulled by circumstance. You were designed to stand like the shoreline, unmoving, even when the waters roar. Faith is not the absence of uncertainty, it's the decision to keep trusting anyway, to stand firm when logic fails, to speak life when evidence is silent. Every time you choose belief over fear, heaven records it as victory. Think of a lighthouse standing in a storm. The wind screams, the rain pounds, yet its light keeps turning. It doesn't argue with the waves, it simply shines. That's what faith looks like. You don't need to silence every question, you just need to keep shining through them. Your voice carries power. What you speak becomes the rhythm of your reality. When you repeat doubt, you multiply it. But when you declare truth, you shift the atmosphere around you. That's why Scripture says, "Let the weak say, I am strong." God isn't asking you to pretend. He's asking you to prophesy strength into existence. You've come too far to let doubt undo what faith has built. Remember how many storms you've already survived. How many times God answered in ways you never expected. Those memories aren't nostalgia, they're armor. Wear them. Speak them. Use them as proof when the whispers return. Even now, heaven is still at work. The very promises you think are delayed are being woven into your tomorrow. Doubt cannot erase what's already written in eternity. So when fear starts to speak, don't argue worship. When uncertainty rises, don't retreat. Remember, you don't have to see the full picture to trust the artist. He's been painting your destiny stroke by stroke, even through seasons that looked like mistakes. One day, you'll look back and realize that every shadow carried purpose. Every unanswered prayer was redirected mercy. Every maybe not was God's way of saying, not yet. Look, the voices of doubt will fade, but the voice of faith, the quiet one that keeps saying, God is still good, and I am still chosen, that's the one that will remain. You were never meant to waver between belief and fear. You were meant to become the calm in the storm, the living proof that faith still works, even when the wind howls, and when the storm finally quiets. You'll see what your faith-protected dreams still intact, purpose still alive, peace still glowing beneath the waves. You didn't lose, you lasted. The sea will settle, and you'll realize you were never at its mercy. The same God who spoke to the winds has been speaking strength into you all along. So let the echoes fade. Stand tall, breathe deep, and know this truth. Faith was never fragile. It was forming you into something unshakable. There is a moment in every chosen life when the struggle shifts, when surviving is no longer enough, and you begin to sense a deeper call to reign, not merely endure. It doesn't happen suddenly. It begins quietly, like the slow unfurling of dawn after a long night. You start realizing that the pain that once weakened you has become the very ground on which you now stand strong. The journey from surviving to reigning isn't about crowns or applause. It's about authority born from endurance. Survival proves you're alive. Reigning proves you've learned how to live. It's the transformation that happens when you no longer fight against the storm, but learn to command peace within it. There was a man named Aram who spent years living in the shadows of survival. Every decision was based on fear, fear of failure, loss, disappointment. He thought humility meant shrinking, that holiness meant hiding. But one night, he dreamed of a field bathed in golden light, where he saw himself walking freely, unafraid. He heard a voice say, "You've mistaken meekness for silence. Rise and speak what I've placed in you." When he woke, something inside shifted. He began to speak again, to teach, to love, to lead. And that quiet obedience turned survival into reign. The Word of God declares in the book of Romans, chapter 5, verse 17, "For if, by the trespass of the one man, death reigned through that one, how much more will those who receive God's abundant provision of grace and the gift of righteousness reign in life through the one man, Jesus Christ?" All that is your inheritance to reign in life, not as a tyrant, but as a testimony to live above fear, above guilt, above the shadows of what tried to destroy you. Reigning doesn't mean controlling the world. It means walking in peace when the world can't control you. God has been teaching you through every hardship how to carry spiritual authority with gentleness, how to move from reaction to revelation. When you reign, your circumstances stop dictating your identity. You begin to live from truth, not toward it. Think of a tree that survived countless storms. Its bark bears scars. Its branches bend in unusual ways. Yet it stands taller, stronger, rooted. That's you. The winds that once threatened to uproot you have actually deepened your roots. You don't fear the rain anymore. You've learned it only helps you grow. This shift from surviving to reigning is quiet but powerful. You begin to speak differently. You forgive faster. You no longer chase validation because peace has taken its place. You've stopped explaining yourself to those who were never meant to understand, because you finally know who you are. This is what reigning looks like, living in alignment with heaven's rhythm. It's not a shout, it's a steady hum, a grace-filled confidence that nothing can separate you from the love that crowned you. You were never meant to remain in survival mode forever. Constant vigilance drains your light. God is inviting you to live as one who's already victorious, to walk through each day as someone seated in peace, not struggling for it. And yet, reigning doesn't mean the battles stop. It means you fight differently. You stop pleading for the storm to pass and start commanding your spirit to be still within it. You stop reacting to fear and start responding from faith. You stop begging for doors to open and start realizing that sometimes you are the door God wants to use. Look around your life right now. The same places where you once cried for rescue are now altars of remembrance. Every scar you carry is a chapter of authority. Every healed wound becomes a key to unlock freedom for others. You're not who you were when the fire began, and that's the evidence that you've stepped into reign. One day, people will come to you seeking peace, not realizing that what they sense in you isn't luck or ease, it's rule. Not worldly rule, but spiritual reign. You've mastered the one thing that fear can't touch: inner stillness. The throne you were promised was never made of gold. It's the seat of peace established in your soul. You reign, not because life got easier, but because your faith got deeper. And that, chosen one, is the quiet victory the world cannot take away. And from that peace, you'll begin to move differently, not striving, not proving, just being. Your steps will carry calm authority. Your words, quiet power. You'll realize that reigning is simply resting in who God already said you are. The crown you wear now is invisible but undeniable. It's made of grace, patience, and hard-earned trust. You no longer chase light, you've become it. So keep walking in that strength. Let peace be your scepter and humility your robe. Because this reign isn't for applause, it's for purpose. You rule best when you love deeply. There is a promise that waits for the faithful, the crown that does not fade, the glory that cannot be bought. But before it rests on your head, it must first be forged within your heart. The crown is not a decoration, it's a declaration. It says, I stayed when I could have left. I believed when nothing made sense. I loved when I had every reason to close my heart. Heaven crowns endurance, not perfection, not performance, endurance. Every quiet act of faith, every unseen prayer, every moment you chose forgiveness over bitterness added another gem to that unseen crown. It isn't made of gold, it's made of grace. There was a woman named Nael who served faithfully for years. Though no one ever noticed, she cleaned the sanctuary after everyone left, prayed over empty chairs, and smiled through her own storms. One night, when she felt too tired to continue, she sat in the darkened room and whispered, "Does it even matter anymore?" In that stillness, she felt warmth at the crown of her head, a peace so tangible it brought her to tears. She didn't see a crown, but she felt it, That night, heaven placed what people could never give honor, born from endurance. The Apostle James wrote in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 12, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial. Having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life the Lord has promised." That's the reward you carry, not someday, but even now. The crown of life begins to rest upon those who refuse to give up. It shines not in gold, but in peace. It is the radiance that makes your presence feel like light in dark rooms. And maybe, after all this time, you can sense that weight of glory settling quietly on you, not heavy, but holy. You've been through so much, yet you still carry gentleness. You've been misunderstood, but you still offer kindness. That's the proof of divine royalty. To be crowned doesn't mean to be elevated above others. It means to bow lower in love. You reign best when you serve. You shine brightest when you lift others. The crown isn't the end of the journey. It's the beginning of a new kind of leadership. Humble, steady, sacred. So let this message find you there. In that quiet moment where you can finally breathe, let it rest over you like the soft glow of dawn. You don't have to earn your crown. You've been living it. Every act of mercy, every tear surrendered, every battle fought in silence, it all led here. And now, as heaven looks on, there is a gentle invitation. If this word resonates with the rhythm of your soul, let it flow outward. Touch the heart below, not for me, but as one who recognizes light in another soul. That small gesture is your silent, like the spark that says, "I see what heaven is doing here." If it stirs your spirit, release it. Share this message the way you'd pass a torch in the night. Not for recognition, but to guide another weary traveler home. If your heart feels drawn to stay connected, to keep walking through these divine moments together, then subscribe, not out of obligation, but out of communion. It's your way of saying, "I want to keep walking in the light." And if this message feels deeply personal, leave a few words below, a small comment, even a single sentence, your testimony etched into digital stone. Let heaven see your gratitude written in the language of endurance. Every gesture becomes sacred when done with intention. The like becomes a nod of unity. The share becomes a gift of encouragement. The comment becomes a prayer in motion. And the subscribe becomes a quiet covenant, a promise to keep walking where grace leads. So wear your crown quietly, knowing it gleams even when unseen. You've carried pain, but also wisdom. You've lost battles, but not your faith. The crown isn't coming, it's already there, shining through every act of endurance. And perhaps this is the most beautiful truth of all. Heaven's applause doesn't sound like thunder, it sounds like peace. When you rest tonight, may you feel that crown settle gently once more, a symbol of every yes you've ever whispered in faith. And when the morning comes, you'll rise lighter, not because the weight is gone, but because the crown has taught you how to carry it with grace. You'll move through the day with quiet confidence, knowing heaven walks beside you. Every glance, every smile, every word you speak will carry the fragrance of endurance. People won't just see you, they'll feel peace through you. That's what divine royalty looks like in motion. And in those moments, remember, the crown isn't for display, it's for purpose. You wear it so others can remember that faith always wins in the end. Before every elevation, there is always one last refining, a final fire that tests what you've built within. It doesn't arrive to punish you, it arrives to prove you. Just when the horizon begins to clear, life often stirs again, pressing on the parts you thought were healed. This is not regression, it's confirmation. The gold must pass through the flame once more before it shines in fullness. The final refining flame doesn't come with thunder or drama. Sometimes it looks like stillness that feels empty, or a quiet loss that seems senseless. It's the moment heaven checks your heart, asking not, "Are you strong enough?" but, "Are you surrendered enough?" There was a man named Ruel who had been waiting years for his dream to manifest. Just when everything started to align, his closest friend betrayed him. The pain was sharp, unexpected, and deep. He wanted to fight back, to prove himself right. But something inside whispered, "Don't defend yourself, trust the fire." For months, he said nothing. He let silence do the speaking. One morning, as the sun rose, he realized that the anger had burned away, and what remained was peace. That was the refining, not the loss, not the betrayal, the peace that followed it. The prophet Zechariah once wrote in chapter 13, verse 9, "I will bring this third through the fire. I will refine them as silver and test them as gold. They will call on my name, and I will answer them." That is the essence of this season. The fire is not against you, it is for you. Every flicker, every spark is heaven shaping you into someone who carries light without being consumed by it. You've asked for more anointing. This is what it looks like. Refining doesn't mean being destroyed, it means being defined. Fire cannot harm what is pure, it only reveals it. And so, what feels like pressure is actually purification. God is removing what cannot stay in the next level, the fear, the impatience, the self-doubt, the need to be understood by everyone. He's preparing you to walk into destiny with a heart that's light enough to hold glory. Think of how glass is made. Sand is ordinary until it's heated by flame. Only under intense heat does it transform into something transparent and radiant. That's what the final refining does. It turns your dust into clarity. It makes you see yourself, others, and God differently. Maybe lately you've felt like everything has been stripped away, relationships changing, plans falling apart, silence stretching longer than you expected. It's not punishment, it's purification. The flame is precise. It burns only what blocks your brilliance. The refining fire always feels lonely because it separates, it isolates you from noise, from comfort, from what used to soothe you. But in that solitude, you begin to hear again the soft, unshakable voice of truth that says, "I am with you in the fire." And yes, He is. He was with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in Babylon's furnace. They didn't escape the fire, they walked through it. And even the smell of smoke didn't cling to them. That's your promise. 2. You may walk through flames, but you will not carry their scent. You will come out of this with lighter steps, clear eyes, and a heart too refined to be shaken by what once scared you. You will learn that fire is not the enemy, it's the language of transformation. When God is ready to elevate you, He never adds weight, He removes it. The fire isn't making you smaller, it's revealing the essence of who you were always meant to be. So don't despise this final refining. It's proof that promotion is near. The greatest anointing always follows the hottest flame. When you emerge from this season, you'll carry peace that no storm can take, wisdom that no book could teach, and strength that no title could give. And when you finally step into the next chapter, you'll know it wasn't the fire that changed you. It was your willingness to stay in it until the work was done. The flame was never your enemy. It was your final teacher. And when the fire finally softens, you'll stand in its quiet aftermath, warm, whole, unafraid. You'll see that nothing essential was lost, only what no longer served you burned away. The ashes beneath your feet won't feel like endings anymore. They'll feel like foundations, holy ground where new beginnings rise. You'll thank the flame, not for its heat, but for its honesty, because it showed you what gold was always hiding inside. When the fire fades and the smoke clears, something sacred happens. You begin to see yourself as heaven always has, not through the lens of struggle, but through the quiet glory of endurance. Every scar, every tear, every prayer whispered in the dark becomes proof that you were never abandoned. You were chosen, refined, and now restored. This is the season where exhaustion gives way to renewal. The fatigue that once clung to your bones begins to lift, replaced by a strange lightness, one born not of ease, but of understanding. You finally realize that strength was never about striving, it was about surrender. The moment you stopped fighting to be enough was the moment heaven took over. There was a woman named Amira who used to wake up every morning dreading the weight of the day. She loved God, but she was tired of waiting, tired of wondering, tired of carrying hope like a fragile thing. Then one night, as she prayed for clarity, she felt a simple truth whisper through her heart: rest, because what's meant for you is already moving toward you. That sentence became her turning point. She stopped begging and began believing. She stopped running and began receiving, and soon, peace started finding her before she even asked. That's what restoration feels like. It's not loud. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or applause. It slips in quietly, like dawn after a long night. You don't even notice it at first. Then one day, you catch yourself laughing again, dreaming again, loving again, and realize the healing worked. The Word of God speaks in the book of Hosea, chapter 6, verse 1. Come, let us return to the Lord, for he has torn us, that he may heal us. He has struck us down, and he will bind us up. And even the tearing had purpose. The breaking wasn't to destroy you, it was to make room for greater wholeness. Every wound became a doorway for grace to enter. The same God who allowed the shaking is the one now steadying your steps. You may not feel completely renewed yet, but look closely, the signs are already there. You no longer react to pain the way you used to. You don't crave validation the way you once did. You've learned how to protect your peace without hardening your heart. That's growth. That's evidence of divine restoration at work. Restoration doesn't mean returning to who you were before everything happened. It means becoming who you were always meant to be, now equipped with wisdom that only wilderness could teach. The wilderness was never meant to define you. It was meant to refine you. Think of how the earth looks after rain. At first, it seems muddy, chaotic, disrupted, but beneath that mess, seeds begin to stir. life wakes up again. That's what's happening in you right now. The chaos you endured has watered something beautiful beneath the surface. It's only a matter of time before it rises. You are no longer the one who merely survives. You are the one who restores. When you speak now, your words carry weight because they've passed through fire. When you love now, your love heals because it's been touched by grace. And soon, everything around you will begin to mirror that inner renewal. The people you meet will reflect the peace you've learned to carry. The opportunities that come will fit you perfectly because they're designed for the healed version of you, not the hurting one. Heaven hasn't just seen your pain, it has repurposed it. Every sleepless night has been turned into fuel for purpose. Every unanswered prayer has become a bridge to something better. You are standing in the aftermath of becoming. So, breathe again. Not the weary sigh of survival, but the deep inhale of resurrection. This is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your restoration. The fatigue will fade. The fire will cool. But the glory that remains will carry you forward. You are still chosen. You always were. And now, at last, you understand why. And when you finally look back, you'll see the pattern, the thread of grace weaving through every heartbreak and triumph. Nothing was random. Every delay, every detour was divine design. You'll smile, not because life became perfect, but because peace did. The world around you may still shift, but your soul now stands unshakable. You've become what fire could not consume: pure faith. So, walk forward gently, carrying the calm of one who has seen both storm and sunrise. You are the proof that endurance blossoms into glory, and that God's chosen ones never fade, they rise. Refined, radiant, and ready. And now, chosen one. This is where the words fall silent, and your own story begins to speak. You've walked through fire, through silence, through waiting and renewal, and still, you stand. This entire journey has been heaven's whisper reminding you, you were never abandoned, you were being rebuilt. Every pause, every tear, every moment of faith was a seed planted in eternity. And now, that seed blooms into something unshakable purpose. You are stepping into a life no longer shaped by fear, but by divine rhythm. So before this moment fades, breathe. Feel how the air around you carries peace again. You've earned this stillness. You've fought through storms most will never know. And heaven honors the quiet courage it took to stay. You are no longer the one who only survives. You are the one who restores, who reigns, who reflects the light that once carried you through. If these words have touched the hidden places of your heart, let them live beyond this screen. Touch the heart gently below your like, becomes a heartbeat that says, I am still here, still chosen. Share this message as you would release a lantern into the night, sending light where you may never go, guiding someone you'll never meet. And if you wish to stay in this sacred flow, to walk with heaven's words a little longer, subscribe, not as routine, but as a quiet agreement. I choose to keep growing. Finally, leave a few words below a comment. Even one line. It becomes your mark, your testimony in the timeline of faith. I made it, and I am still becoming. Every gesture matters. Each act heart-touched, word shared, message written is not for applause, but for connection. This is how light multiplies. May your days ahead carry the calm of completion and the fire of purpose. You are the living proof that grace endures, that chosen ones never disappear, they transform.